Hey folks, it's been a while. Wasn't going to take you along for this, but once I kind of got into it, I thought, I've got a story to tell about this, so I thought I'd show you what I'm working on today. This is an old school Glyph dual rack mount SCSI hard drive enclosure. This used to have two pull-out drive trays here with SCSI drives on it. And I have the tray for at least one of these drives somewhere, but I'm not sure where it is. I can't find it anymore. But I've had these things kicking around for a while, and back in the 90s, these were real cool things in your studio, man, to have these rack mount drive bays and removable drive bays. And on the back, they've got SCSI connectors for them and a fan and everything. And real cool metalwork on them and all this stuff. And in today's world, SCSI drives, really aren't much in demand. And so these really don't have much purpose anymore. However, I have a couple of these SATA removable drive trays kicking around. Oh, I must have hardware in there. And I want to put these into this unit instead of the SCSI ones. And a while back on eBay, I found these real cool little SATA Bridge Boards. These are USB to dual SATA, and you can configure them as dual drives or a couple of different RAID configurations. And so this should fit right here. Looks like that'll line right up in the back of one of those slots here, and I can convert this Glyph drive to dual SATA. So that's pretty cool. Make this into a external rack mount USB drive carrier. Granted, people are going to M2 drives and all this, small SSD stuff, but, at least it makes this a little bit more usable. I hate to just throw this thing away. So I've had a love-hate relationship with Glyph since their beginning. I remember when these first came out, I was so excited, and I ran out and I spent my money on one. And a year or two down the line, and the one that I got, I should say, had one removable SCSI bay on one side, and this side was just a blank. And about a year or so later, I wanted to make this a removable drive, and so I called up Glyph and tried to order this part, and they refused to sell it to me. They wanted me to send the whole thing back into them and that they would convert it, and they wanted to charge me an astronomical price. And I was pissed. I was flat out upset. And I remember calling up their distributor and talking to him and saying, what in the world is the deal? And he says, it's really not that hard to put a drive in and set a SCSI ID. I mean, it's got, switches right here on the front. All I have to do is mount the thing. What's the big deal? And why won't they sell me parts? And he said, well, let me call the manufacturer and talk to them. And after a little while, he called me back and said, well, they're going to do it this one time. And so I got my parts and I put it in, and that was pretty much the last Glyph product I ever bought, just because of that customer service. This could have been a real cool company, and they could have been real customer facing and allowed customers to mount parts and, all that stuff. And I would have done a lot more business with them. I was installing a lot of studios at that time. But after that, I was done. No more Glyph products. So I don't even know how I came across this one, but I did. And so it's been kicking around with no use for a while now. And so I thought I would try and do something with it. So for my studio, all my stuff is rack mount. And so this makes a nice convenient way to change out drives and whatnot. So over here you got a power supply and the power switch and the SCSI ID switches over here. And Like I said, I had already started kind of taking this apart, and so these were hot glued on. You can see they hot glued all the connectors in here. This, I cut the hot glue off here so I could unplug these, and I had already started removing these wires in here. And I should be able to just remove these, and then this will mount right in its place. Should be able to just put that in there, line it straight up. These cables will even plug right in, and then I'll mount the bridge adapter in here and just run a couple of SATA cables to it, and we should be good to go. This should work out quite well, and give some old life, give some new life to this old drive bay. So let me get these mounted and I'll come right back. Okay, so I got one drive out, and to get these out, there are screws on the bottom which remove these from here, and then you can just take the brackets off the side, mount the brackets onto the new drive, slide it in here, and line everything up. Okay, I've got the drives removed, and I got the cable for the switches out. And you know, these boards have got spots for LEDs on them. Two air LEDs, two drive actuating LEDs, and an H actuator LED. I'm not sure what that the H one is for, but you could, if you wanted to get real fancy, remove these and, you know, put in some LEDs, or, you know, maybe knock out the switches in here or something, and put a couple LEDs in there so you could have, you know, drive actuator LEDs if you wanted. I don't know that I'm going to get that fancy, but we could. And then these are designed, these little bridges are designed to mount right into these bays here. I mean, if you look at that, I know I'm not exactly on. The screws are a little narrow, but the screws on the SCSI brackets were also a little bit narrow. But that will mount right in there. And, you know, a creative person could mount a bunch of SSDs in here vertically or something. And, you know, some 2.5-inch SSDs, put a whole bunch of them in here. And you could connect, we'll see here, if each one of these will handle 2 drives, you could do 8 drives in this box here with 8 of these USB adapters, and then just connect a hub or something to them. If you wanted to do something like that, well, you know, there's options here. The other nice thing that you could do with this, like what I have on in my studio, is I have CD rewriter here. It's actually a Blu-ray rewriter here, and then this side is the removable hard drive. So that way, you know, it's a nice function where you can, you know, still use CDs. I mean, who uses optical CDs anymore? But I still do from time to time, or for ripping CDs or something like that into the computer, that kind of a thing, and then removable drive over here, or whatever. And now I believe you can even get, if you're going to use like 2.5-inch drives, you can get 2 drives that'll go in here that are removable. And I think they even make some that fit in here for M2 drives. I mean, if you were to put a bunch of M2 drives in here, that would be really cool too. I just hate to see this, you know, this nice metal work, and I just go to scrap. And, you know, I know there's not that much use for it anymore, but I still think it's cool, so I'm going to modify this and, yeah, show you. Okay, drive bays are mounted in here. They fit quite nicely, and they look like they belong at home. They are ever so slightly smaller than the SCSI bays, so I kind of made these up a little higher so the gap is a little bit more at the bottom, so it just sort of hides it down there. You don't really see it. You do see it a little bit here on the side, but not much you can do about it. Once the cover's on, you'll never notice it. And that little bag that was in here was the keys, not somebody's old stash. So that's the keys for these drive bays. You can lock the drives in there, so which is nice. And then these have got little LCD displays on them. Once I get it powered up, I'll show you. They tell you the fan speed and drive status and all that kind of stuff on here, because these have got little fans built in them. This is a fan in here. And the other thing we need to do is we need to make sure which direction these fans are going and this fan is going. To make sure that if these are blowing in, that this is blowing fresh air to it, or the opposite way, sucking out. And then what I will do with I'm going to put the bridge adapter here is I'll make this likely a vent or something. Oh, that's right. This has got a vent here, which is mostly blocked, which is kind of strange. And I suppose you get airflow in and around here, and this vent is completely blocked. So it looks like a vent, but it's not. I don't know why they didn't make this hole in here bigger. So that could actually act as an actual air vent there. They couldn't do it on that one because this is where the side of the case is, or you got to have some strength there for the side of the case. So kind of odd in the way that works. So you've got a fan in here that can either blow in or suck out, but you've got no way for return air to go in here. Maybe it would be better to put the bridge board over here and use this as a air hole, and then just put a little divider or something in here so you get some airflow in and around, something like that. Maybe that's what we'll do. All right, let me play with that a little bit, and then I forgot this board needs power also. So I've got to hook up a little adapter to go from one of these to that, and so we can get power to that. All right, let me figure this out with how I'm going to do this, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, we have it all wired up, and I see my bulb is burnt out in this light. This is supposed to light up, so I'll have to get a new bulb for that. And I don't know who makes these drive bay things, but you can see the fan is spinning. It's got a temperature thing on here. That's nice. I just found I happen to have a pre-made cable, but I'm going to have to put some zip ties in here to keep this away from the fan. I got an extra power cable in here now. I might buy a different one of these to shorten it up, but it's working for now. Some right angle SATA cables. And one of the annoying things about this board is that the SATA cable is one way on one and one way on the other. So thankfully I have quite a few SATA cables laying around. I was able to find some right angle adapters that worked. So we're all in here now. This is mounted up. This is going to work out nicely. And I think I'm going to make this just a air inlet. I can feel the air is blowing out here, so it needs to have a way for air to get in. So I think I'll leave this open, or maybe I'll put a filter on here, and I'll see if I've got a plate to block this off over here on this side, and that'll make a nice little drive box. That fan moves some air, I'm telling you. These little fans feel like they're sucking in. I think they're sucking in anyway. So these at least have got vents in here, so maybe they're blowing out and they're blowing hot air out. And see, this fan is blowing in, so I might need to turn this fan around the other way so that way they're not impeding. If these fans are blowing hot air out, I don't want this blowing it back on it. I want this to help extract it. So there we go. That'll make a nice little addition to someone's studio once I get it all buttoned up. Okay, this piece of paper is easy to lose, and if you happen to come across one of these boards, you know, I tried searching by this part number and everything. I never could find anything, but I found these boards on eBay, and I'll put the link down in the doobly-doo down below. And of course it's eBay, so by the time you see this video, you know, they might have relisted it or whatever. I'll see if I can list the seller. But this piece of paper goes over how this board works and all the functions, the connector descriptions, LED pin headers, what the active and error LED indication means. But these switches here are what we need to set up how we're going to configure these drives. This is switch 2 back here. This is the critical part. So when we look at this here, you can set it for span, which will make 2 drives into one big drive. So let's say you had 2 1 terabyte drives in here. It would then become a 2 terabyte drive. RAID 0 does a strip, so it must go back and forth, back and forth. RAID 1 mirrors the 2 drives for backup. And then what we're going to use is JBOD. JBOD stands for just a bunch of disks, which essentially makes this port multiplies it. So that way with one USB connection, you get 2 drives. So that's how we've got it set, is just for JBOD. And there's also this RAID mode switch set back here. That is this little switch back here that you have to press. If you make a change to this, you have to change these switches and then you have to press this, which then stores the configuration in the little chip's memory down there. And so it gives you some information here. So for anybody that has lost this piece of paper, yeah, see, they call it a SCSI metal frame into a multi-base storage. So these boards were designed exactly to convert these SCSI cases into... Yeah, that's what I was looking for here. It was designed to fit into a Centronic 50-pin housing or cutout. Hardware RAID controller. And it's nice that it supports USB 2.0 and 3.0, as well as eSATA, which I don't know anybody that uses eSATA, but you can do eSATA. Yeah, and then you can configure this so that way the RAID is configured by your computer or by the dip switches. Supports hot plug. And these must be fairly old because they're still talking about Windows XP. And I can confirm they work with Windows 11 just fine. So again, you know, connector descriptions in here, USB, pin headers, all that stuff. What we really need is just how to set switch 2 on the back. And I'm showing you this again because I lost this piece of paper and I had to order some more of these boards just to get that piece of paper. So now I have a permanent record of how to configure these switches back here. So dip switch 1 here configures, if it's down, then these 2 switches set your RAID settings. If it's up, then your software sets your RAID settings. So we're going to leave it just like that. And I have confirmed that these fans are both blowing out and this fan is blowing out, so that way it'll suck air through the case this way. So that means we could and probably should just block this off and block this off. I'll have to make some plates to fit in there or keep digging through my stash because I probably have some somewhere. Okay, well that wraps up this project on how to convert a Glyph rack mount dual drive bay from SCSI to USB. Not too hard of a project, something that probably took me 20 minutes to do, and turns this old box into something more useful. I'm going to list this up on eBay. It'll be for sale if somebody needs it for their studio. I actually have another one of these, but one side here is just a blank. There's no cutout in it, and when they did that, they would mount a drive internally. So I'm not sure what to do with that one, but that one you could just put a single drive in over here, I guess. Or you could mount a SATA drive internal over there. You just wouldn't be removable, which wouldn't be the end of the world. Put in a nice big fat, you know, what are they up to today? 20, 30 terabyte SATA conventional hard drives over here on this side. And then you can use a removable or put an optical disc over here on this side or something. So that might be interesting to do. And I got to figure out what bulb I need. You can just pull this cap off of here. And let me see if, yeah, there we go. You got to turn it off. And there's a little bulb in there. You got to carefully reach in there and grab that bulb out of there. So I'll figure out what bulb I need and get that ordered. So that lights up like it's supposed to. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for following along. I know this wasn't the greatest project in the world, but hope you enjoyed it. I got the bulb out, and it's a little bullet-shaped bulb. And written on here says D6V 200 mA, so 6 volt, 200 milliamp bulb. So that's what we got to find for anybody who has a Glyph drive that needs to replace their bulb. That's what it looks like. To get it out was a bit of a trick. I had to take a pair of needle nose pliers and carefully grab it and wiggle it and wiggle it and wiggle it, and I finally got it out. But it took a bit of effort to get out of there. Maybe wrapping some tape or putting something sticky on the end of these would have helped get that out of here, but you got to be careful you don't break that glass. That would be a real bugger to try and get out of there with if you had broken it. So.